Test, test. Welcome, folks who are joining. Hey, Jason's here. Awesome. Ron, Stephanie, Aniko, T, whoever that is. Awesome. Love it. Hey, what's up, Jason? We're just going to take a few moments here to let people join. I'm also going to get this going on Facebook Live at the same time. It's the first time I have done this, so I didn't even realize until recently that you could post on Zoom and Facebook at the same time. Awesome. Look at all these people joining right at 12. You guys are on it. One more moment. As we wait, just let yourself drop into setting an intention for this workshop today, for this class. While I try to figure out the Facebook Live end of things. Awesome, Prima, Adam, welcome. Making sure we are good to go on Facebook Live here. And it appears that we are. Okay. Awesome. All right. Someone is messaging me and saying they can't join. One moment, please. Sheena says, skipping breakfast here in New Zealand, waiting to listen to what you have to offer. Well, I hope we can get you to your breakfast soon. One moment, please. And again, just connect into an intention that you have for this event today. Okay. All right. Anyone else who is trying to find the link or whatever is going to have to wait until later or go on Facebook Live. So, welcome. So good to be here today in the midst of this unprecedented moment in history. Who would have ever thought that we would be living through a pandemic together and that the world would be going through what it's going through? This is really quite something. I don't know about any of you, but I actually feel like I was created for this time. It's the weirdest feeling. I mean, I never would have wanted so many people to be going through so many intense challenges. Obviously, for those who are affected by COVID-19, I pray for their well-being. For those who are, losing jobs, who have sick family, I pray for them as well. So this is an intense time. And I feel like it's necessary. It's something, it's part of the evolution of humanity. And I can really feel it deep in my bones. Like, this is here for a reason. This is here to teach us something. And if we allow ourselves to be trapped by fear and uncertainty, then, at the worst, we're doomed. At the very least, it's not productive. And so my goal and my aim, and part of why I wanted to do this workshop today with you all, is to really help to give you a tool to work through the fear, so that you can live in the uncertainty, and you can see the uncertainty going on. You can see the fear. You can see all of the stuff going on all around you, and not get trapped in it. So really, this is about being what I call the eye of the storm, like the eye of the hurricane. In the midst of a hurricane, we see, chaos and destruction going on all around us. But the center of that hurricane is always quiet. It's always peaceful. And when we connect to our breath, when we learn how to breathe consciously, we can maintain that center, we can maintain that calm and that state of peace inside of us in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the hurricane. And that's not to say that we won't get caught up in the hurricane from time to time, that we won't get beaten down by some news about something, or some fear about losing a job, or whatever the case might be, or some fear about contracting the virus. That's to be expected. It's to be expected that we get caught up in the storm at times. And it's also not necessary for us to hang out there. We can find our way back to stillness. We can find our way back to peace. I want to start by sharing a story of how I came upon breathwork and how powerful breathwork can be. This was actually before I had any idea that there was such a thing as breathwork. I didn't know that there was such a thing as breathwork practices. I mean, I knew about yoga and I practiced yoga, but I did not know that there were specific breathwork practices at the time. So back in 1999, I had just finished leading a cycling trek across the United States for 9 teenagers. And that was in the summer of 1999 in August. And shortly after, it was only 2.5 months later, and some of you, probably most of you who are watching this right now, know that I was in a car accident which left me paraplegic, caused by a drunk driver. I was riding in the back seat of the car, and we went off the road and we hit a tree, and the impact broke my T12 vertebra. And when that happened, I immediately became paralyzed and lost all sensation and function from my navel down. And, obviously I don't have to tell you that that was the most traumatic and shocking moment of my entire life, and a moment that I will, to say I'll always remember it is an understatement. I will definitely always remember that moment. I was in deep shock and confusion. And it was the sort of thing that you never hope to have to go through. And that night, the doctors put me on morphine, and I had surgery the following day. I'm just going to check on the questions just to make sure that we are all good. Okay, no issues with audio or anything. Let me know if there's any issue with audio. By the way, I'm planning on going probably about an hour. It might go a little bit over. I have to sort of feel into it. So if you have to go, at any particular time, just feel free to log off, and you can always come back and watch it on Facebook Live later. I'll probably also post it on YouTube as well. So don't worry about it if you've missed a bit. I'm going to have a question and answer period at the end of the session. So, but expect about an hour, maybe a little over. So, Munch, can you please stop walking around? Your pacing is kind of annoying. My dog's trying to figure out what to do about quarantine. So on the night of the accident, I'm put on morphine. The next day I have surgery, and I spent the first week in the hospital with friends and family coming and seeing me. And I thought that I was doing okay. I thought that I was coping with what had happened okay. And I thought, wow, I have a pretty good attitude about this. Little did I know that it was actually the morphine that was making me feel like I was doing okay. And on day 7, right before I was about to be sent to a rehabilitation facility to learn how to use a wheelchair and all the other stuff that goes with it, they took me off morphine, and I suddenly had the most intense panic attack that I could possibly imagine. I had never had a panic attack before. I had a pretty mellow and easygoing disposition. I was not the sort of person who was prone to panic attacks. But in that moment, when they took me off morphine, that night, I'm lying alone in this hospital bed in the middle of the night, and it's completely dark except for the flickering from my neighbor's TV on the other side of the curtain. And my lower body's paralyzed, my upper body's in a hard shell plastic cast. And I freaked out, and I thought, I cannot live like this. I cannot go on like this. And I thank God that I didn't have a sharp object around, because I might have ended it right there. It was terrifying. I thought, I cannot be paralyzed. I'm an athlete, and et cetera, et cetera. I thought, no way, I cannot lose my whole lower body and live the rest of my life like this. And so the panic was so intense. And the only thing, I kept hearing this message in my head, and the message was, do yoga. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to do yoga? Why am I even thinking about yoga right now? And I just kept on hearing, do yoga, do yoga. I'm like, what are you talking about? Do yoga. Why am I thinking this? Where is this coming from? And then another message came through, and it said, the most important part of yoga is the focus on the breath. So you can still breathe. And so I thought, okay, yes, I can still breathe. I had constricted breath from this hard shell plastic cast, and I actually later found out that I had a liter of fluid around my lungs, but I could still breathe. And so I started breathing as deeply as I could, just one breath after another, after another, after another, just deep, deep breaths. And after a few minutes, the most profound shift occurred. And when I say profound, it was mind-blowing, and it was totally sudden. Everything up until that point was panic and fear and confusion and thinking, oh my God, what have I lost? What am I going to do? Freaking out, just totally freaking out. And then suddenly, boom, all of it was gone. It wasn't even like there was a slow, gentle transition. It was gone, all of it. And then suddenly it was like there was this threshold. And on one side of that threshold was everything that I ever thought that I knew about myself. It was my identity. It was my name. It was my relationship with my body. It was my likes and dislikes, where I grew up, my family, my education, all of the things that I had ever identified with as being me. But I was on the other side of the threshold. But yet I still existed. And as that happened, I also no longer could feel my inhale or my exhale, because I no longer related purely as my body. I had actually become the breath. I was more breath than I was body. And essentially, if you really look at it, I was more energy than I was matter. And my awareness, I became aware of myself as a pure energy body. And I became aware that breath is spirit. And that Holy Spirit, as we call what we call Holy Spirit, is actually real. It's a real thing that we experience through the breath. When you think about the term spirit or inspired, what does inspired mean? It means to breathe in spirit. So I became spirit as my breath expanded infinitely, and I became the breath. And it was an eternal place of awareness where nothing but pure possibility existed. And I thought, oh my God, I really felt the hands of God being laid on me. And I thought, okay, I'm healing right now. And I naively thought that I was going to be able to walk out of there the next day. It was that powerful that I thought, okay, I'm healing. God is healing me right now. Oh, holy shit. Wow. And while I didn't walk out of there the next day, something inside me had shifted. There was a reset button that had been pushed. And I realized from here on out, no matter what, I'm going to be able to handle it, because I realized that I wasn't my thoughts. I wasn't my feelings. I realized that I was something much greater, something much more vast than that. And it was a full-on mystical experience. This is the same exact type of experience that is described by the Buddha. It was an experience of total enlightenment, which is a real thing. Not to say that I have been able to consistently maintain that state day in and day out, moment by moment, because just as everything is temporary, that state of being was also temporary. And yet, at the same time, I recognize its presence at all times. I recognize that it's always who I really am at my core. Whenever I am lost in feelings or thought, whenever I'm ruminating on something, or whenever I'm sort of in a state of anxiety or feeling a sense of paralysis in my life, I try to go back into that state. I try to access that state through the breath. And there's only one way to access it, and it is through the breath. And so right now, as the coronavirus is such a huge issue in our lives and affecting everything from our work and our relationships, most people are not used to being at home, dealing with the anxieties and the pressures of being at home. It's not always easy. If you're at work all the time, you probably want to go home, but yet when you're at home all the time, you probably just want to go to work, And so the breath gives us a way of accessing that state of inner peace and centeredness and stillness as we go through those anxieties and these unexpected circumstances. Now, I should add also that this is not my first rodeo with quarantine. I have spent two years of my life completely immobilized in hospital beds. And I've spent an additional 2 or so years pretty much bedridden at home from pressure ulcers, which were secondary injuries to my spinal cord injury. And so I'm very used to being quarantined and in isolation. And during those times, thank God, I had breathwork and I had meditation so that I could separate who I was from my circumstances. So that when fear started to set in, or boredom, or anger, or whatever, lower level vibrational feelings, I could use the breath, I could use meditation to take me out of those circumstances, take me out of that relationship of myself being a victim of my circumstances, and see that I'm actually much more vast than the story. that it's only a story of myself that can be a victim. That's not the real me. And the same holds true for all of us, because who we really are is vast awareness, infinite awareness. We are not the story. We're not the victim of our circumstances. And with the leaders that I coach in my 6-month coaching program, we work with this principle on a regular basis, week after week, to really reinstill this, keep reinstilling this moment by moment, and then shape one's life from that place of that awareness. So I want to begin breathing here in a moment. And let's see, I'm looking at the time. We'll probably breathe for around 25 minutes, and then we can have some time at the end for a Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. So some of you may be familiar with holotropic breathwork, which is something that I have practiced and I have taught as well. I've taught a number of people, hundreds of people, holotropic breathwork. It's a very, very powerful practice developed by a guy named Stan Grof in the 1970s. And so a lot of you who are online probably have already experienced holotropic breathwork. We're going to do something that is similar, very similar, but a little bit more calming than holotropic breathwork. Holotropic breathwork can be sort of jarring to the system in a lot of ways. And I prefer to do holotropic breathwork with people in person, because you never really know what's going to come up in that process. It can induce psychedelic states of consciousness. It can also induce, it can trigger people. And the reason why it can trigger people emotionally is because we store our emotions from our past inside our bodies. Over the years or the decades of our lives, we pick up stuff from our surroundings. We experience dynamics with our family. Some of us experience abuse. Some of us experience, any number of things that sort of create these either severe traumas or sometimes sort of micro traumas that just sort of add up over the course of the years. And that stuff gets stored inside of us. When we're not able to process a feeling in the moment, it gets stored inside of us and it turns into a story that lingers in our unconscious mind. And it can and will impact the way that we live and show up in the world. And it can and will impact our perceptions of ourselves. And it can, these stories, these emotions, these feelings that we stored inside us can start to move when we're doing breath work. Because what happens with the body is the body will restrict breath around a stored emotion. If you think about what happens when someone experiences shock, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but it's kind of like, so if you think about that, what's happening is everything is getting pulled up and in. And there's a tightness that occurs. There's a tightness that occurs in the shoulders and the neck and the chest, and the breath is getting tugged up, and it goes into a protective holding pattern. So that's a really obvious thing. But we're also doing that in ways that are maybe a lot more subtle day in and day out as we go through various different challenging emotional experiences. We're also having feelings that get locked in with certain breathing patterns, and we restrict our breath, and we try to basically protect ourselves from that feeling. It's like, I don't know what the hell that was, I don't know how to process it right now. And so my body needs to do something with it. So my body's going to bury that feeling and then protect it. And the way that it's going to protect it is it's going to cut off the breath's supply to that area of the body. Now, that can happen through trauma. It can also happen through, like I said, these sort of micro traumas where it's just sort of emotions that we're unable to process in the moment for whatever reason. They might not be things that are creating anything sort of, necessarily a trauma, but it's something that is, it just gets stored. Or we can also just be so, sort of wrapped up in our day-to-day routine, not focusing on our breath at all, that we just tend to start to breathe more lightly and get our breath restricted through doing that. And so as you start to breathe more, you start to move more feeling. All these feelings can start to come up again. And actually, this is a necessary component to healing from our past. We actually need to move those feelings. We need to shed that stuff. It needs to come up so that it can be released and let go of, so that we can truly be present to who we are now versus living from the patterns of the past. And yet with holotropic breath work, I find that those releases can sometimes be very intense. And so I prefer in that situation to actually be able to work with someone in person and sort of guide them through that process should that sort of experience arise. Now, we're going to be doing something, like I said, similar to holotropic breathwork, but a little more subtle. It's a little bit more yin. In other words, more on the receptive side. It's a softer breath. And this breath I originally learned this breath from a breathwork teacher that I studied with. He was the first person to teach me breathwork, a fellow named Robin Clements, who leads Breathwave. He's an extraordinary teacher. If any of you have the opportunity to study with him, I highly recommend Robin. He's a beautiful human being and an incredible breathwork teacher. So the way that this breath is going to work, and first of all, in a moment after I give you the setup, I'm going to want to suggest that you find a comfortable place to lie down. If you absolutely can't find a place to lie down, then you can do it sitting, but you're likely going to be a bit lightheaded. And also when you lie down, your body is able to be in a totally receptive space because it's not having to hold your structure. And so ideally, we want to be able to lie down to get the maximum benefit from the breath. But before that, I'm going to set you up with just a brief introduction to this particular breath, how it's done, so that when we dive in, you can get the most out of it. So the breath is going to start in your belly, and then it's going to move up into your chest. This is one deep breath that moves like a wave. And this wave can be a little bit challenging to get used to, because most people are not used to breathing in waves. In fact, most people are not used to conscious breathing at all. We just kind of breathe and don't even recognize we're doing it until someone says something about it. So this might take a little bit of time to get used to, but just do your best. This is not about winning any prize and being the best conscious breather or anything like this. This is just, I'm giving you the introduction now, and if you want, you can go back and listen to the video again at some point and keep doing it. So the breath starts in the belly, moves up into the chest, and it's a deep inhale. And then on the exhale, you're just going to relax completely. You're not going to try to breathe out hard. Now in holotropic breath work, there's also tends to be a powerful exhale as well. This is just a very light, just effortless exhale. And this is going to help you to keep from experiencing hyperventilation symptoms. And so it's just this one wave, and then an exhale, effortless exhale, and then repeat and repeat and repeat. As soon as that exhale is out, another inhale. Now, the focus should be on the power of the inhale. Just really getting as much breath into your body as you can. And a lot of people will sort of underdo it because they're not used to doing it. And they'll be like, so you can see if I'm doing that, it's not going to be all that effective. You want to start to really try to breathe more. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Repeat, 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 repeat. And I would say, find your own timing with this. I might be doing it a bit faster than a lot of you do it because I'm used to doing it a lot. And find your own timing. And it's to be expected that you might feel lightheaded, you might feel really spacey. Um, you might start to go into a space that's kind of like an alpha state, sort of an in between waking and dreaming kind of space. That's actually a really, really powerful space to be in. In fact, if you can maintain your focus on your breath while you're in that alpha state, and the alpha state is that space, if you can imagine that period, that very brief period right between when you are awake and when you go to sleep. And there's that window where you're like kind of neither awake nor asleep. You're aware of yourself, and yet things are very different. And you're kind of partly dreaming before you drift off completely. That's a state that we want to try to access and keep breathing through and with that state. That is one of the most healing states that you can possibly be in. When you can enter that alpha state, then, so because what's happening is your high beta brainwaves, normally in our day-to-day existence, we're living from that space of the high beta brainwaves, which are the brainwaves that are accessed, especially when we're in stressful situations. We have to be focusing on things at hand. We're kind of focused on the anxieties of the world and so forth. That is all high beta brainwave. It's not a good space for personal healing, and it's not a good space to be able to find your center and find that inner stillness. And so if you can get into that alpha state, that between world space, and keep breathing through that space, stay in that space and prolong that and sustain that. That is an incredible space to be able to hang out and reside in. So anyway, I'm going to give everyone just a moment to try to, maybe you want to find a pillow, find a place to lie down, and just find a place where you can be totally relaxed, where you can just let go of, as though you're about to take a nap, basically. So I'm going to let you do that. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes to orient that way. And again, if for whatever reason, given your circumstances, you need to be sitting in a chair, that's fine. Maybe you can go back to the video later and check it out and redo it, and be lying down to get more out of it. You'll still get something out of it, but if you can find a place to lie down, please do. I'm also going to play a little guitar while we do this too. This is actually something I've never done before, played guitar while doing a breathwork class. So I'm kind of excited to add this in. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to hear it, but I'll do my best. And as you find a space to lie down, as you get comfortable, I want you to start by letting yourself feel whatever it is that you're feeling right now. You might be feeling a little bit of sadness or grief, or you might be feeling a little bit of frustration. When our lives become uncertain, any number of different emotions can arise. We get used to having a routine and having things that we can expect and rely on. And right now, at this moment in history, a lot of those things that we thought that we could rely on may not be as reliable as we thought. So whatever feeling you're having right now, or you might be feeling good, you might be feeling really peaceful, you might be feeling like, I've actually been kind of feeling that. Feeling this opportunity that we all have to take a step back from the hustle that goes on all around us all the time and really reflect, use this time for introspection, looking at what we need, looking at what the planet needs, looking at how we can serve the greater good on the planet during this time, how we can love more deeply. So now, as you lie down with your palms facing up, close your eyes. If you have something that you can put over your eyes, that's great too. If not, that's fine. And begin breathing a deep inhale, starting with your belly and rolling up to your chest, and then just relax on your exhale. So the inhale is going to be longer than the exhale. Deep, open inhale. And this is all through your mouth as well. You can do this through your nose as well. It's just that the mouth will provide a little bit more oxygen to your lungs more efficiently. However, the nose can be more calming as well. So I'll really leave it up to you whether it's the mouth or the nose that you choose. I've been taught to do it through the mouth, but if you'd prefer to do it through the nose, that's fine. Wave of breath from the belly to the chest and exhale. Wave of breath from the belly to the chest and exhale. Letting yourself feel whatever there is to feel. Relax your eyes. Let your eyes sink back in your head. Belly, chest, exhale. Belly, chest, exhale. Remember that you are the eye of the storm. As the hurricane goes on around you, you are that peaceful center. Powerful rolling breaths, and then relaxing on your exhale. As soon as one exhale is done, you inhale again. Keep breathing, finding that peaceful stillness inside of you. Welcoming any thought and any feeling you have, and letting them pass by, letting them roll right through as you breathe. Every new breath, let whatever thought or feeling you have roll right through with the breath. If it helps you to imagine being your favorite place, feel free to do so. Maybe at the base of a waterfall, feeling that amazing oxygen coming off of the waterfall. One breath after another, finding that center, that space of stillness and quiet deep inside of you, noticing every sensation in your body as the energy moves with your breath. Deep inhales and soft exhales. Waves of breath coming from your belly to your chest, and softly exhaling and breathing again. rolling your eyes back in the center of your head, relaxing into the space inside of your body, bringing your awareness to the space within you. Every breath reminds us of the space that is inside us, the open space full of spirit. Every new breath reaffirms your commitment to life. Every new breath reaffirms your commitment to living from spirit. With every exhale, let go. Let go of anything that's no longer serving you or not serving this moment. Drop into that space inside of you, that space between waking and sleeping. As you keep breathing powerfully, every new breath is your commitment to life. Every new exhale is an opportunity to let go of anything that's not serving your highest good. Keep breathing powerful waves of breath. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One wave after another. Finding that stillness inside of you. That still space. It's always there. It's always there inside of you, inside the space, inside your breath. Letting your body relax into the floor, grounding your energy. Letting yourself dissolve, letting everything dissolve. Let it all dissolve into the breath. There's a place in you that already knows how to proceed. It already knows what the next step is. It's beyond your logical mind. It emerges from the stillness. It emerges from the quiet, from the peace. Keep powerfully breathing. Every new inhale, a commitment to life, a commitment to potential. Every new exhale, another opportunity to let go of your expectations. Let go of anything that's not serving you, and fully embrace the present moment. Now begin to slowly return to natural breathing, however that breathing is right now. And let yourself just relax. Letting your breath just be natural. And when you're ready, you can begin to slowly come up from wherever you're lying down, opening your eyes. Orienting yourself back in the room. And as you do so, let yourself maintain this space of inner quiet, stillness. It doesn't have to go anywhere just because you're adjusting to being back in the room. Keep your awareness focused on that inner stillness as you adjust to the light in the room around you. I'm going to take a few moments here just to answer any questions that anyone has. You can type them into the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer anything. I'm also going to be checking on Facebook Live here as well. My dog is literally taking a dump on the floor right now as I speak. That was totally unnecessary. Andrea says, why so much yawning? That's such a good question. So my experience of the yawning is that this is very common. I've yawned a lot doing breath work, and what my experience of it is it's a release of tension. It's every time I do breath work and relax for meditations, I can't stop yawning. You are in good company. There's a lot of people who do the same. Yeah, it happens a lot. You're releasing tension. That's all it is. When you think about what a yawn is, you're kind of inviting oxygen into the body. It's a letting go. So, and include it as a positive. Nothing wrong with yawning. Jace, it's good stuff. Well, up to the dump on the floor. Fortunately, it's just a little squirt. I don't even know why the hell he needed to do that. Now, this is perpetually recorded forever, for eternity. Jean says, thank you. A powerful experience. You're welcome, Jean. My possible. Jason says, impossible for me to not hit trigger. It's managed, but beyond threshold of not in trigger state. Okay, but other advice for when you get into trigger? That is an awesome question. Advice for when you get into the trigger. So my advice for when you experience an emotional trigger inside of you, the tendency is to want to do what the emotion, whatever that emotion initially kind of wanted you to do, which is fight, flight, or freeze, right? It wanted you to abandon yourself in some way. It created a reaction in some way. And so the trigger, the memory stored in your unconscious, in your body, is wanting you to do the same thing. It's saying, look, this is too much for me to be able to take. I either have to stop breathing or I have to get up and do something. I can't just do this. And so this is where it's really important to use the power of your awareness to notice the trigger and say, I'm staying with you, body. I'm staying here inside my body. I'm not going to let the trigger take me out. I'm going to keep breathing. And so as you stay breathing while experiencing a trigger, you might experience the emotions that you never let yourself have to begin with. Whatever that created that trigger in the first place, whatever that emotion was, whether it's anger, sadness, or whatever, by breathing with it, you can actually experience the release of the emotion. And it might feel like whatever is happening to you is happening in the present moment. You might feel like that past experience is happening in the present moment, but it's actually not. It's just the body releasing that past experience. So if you can keep breathing through it, then it will actually allow the experience to process, and you likely will feel some emotions around that. But it's just staying steady and making your awareness more, basically putting yourself, your present moment awareness, in the driver's seat and letting the trigger just be the trigger, and just stay steady with it. If that answers your question, I hope that answers your question. Adam says that was intense. Thanks. The narration of the dog pooping was priceless. Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty priceless. Of course he would choose to do that right now. Ron says, I guess even your dog wanted to get in on the releasing. Sean went into a full let go and began flying out of his body. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you found your way back, Sean. I love you too, Jason. I love you too, Sean. Let's see. I'm just checking in. Priya, you're so welcome. So glad you feel rested. That makes me happy. Guitar was great. Oh, good. I'm glad that you were able to hear it. I'm glad that you guys were able to hear the guitar. That makes me happy. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Anything that anyone wants to add? Fascinating. Sheena says, fascinating to notice pockets of energy within the body. Some of them were unexpected. Yeah, totally unexpected. This is when you feel stuck in some way, whether that's a feeling of sort of paralysis or anxiety or whatever, any kind of stuckness, the key is not to get into your head about it and try to figure it out intellectually. And this is what most people do, is when they have a sense of stuckness, they try to figure out why they're stuck intellectually. And they try to figure it out through a story. Essentially, like they start to identify with the stuckness and try to figure out, what does this say about me? What does this say about me and my experience and who I am and this and that, and try to relate it to their personal lives or their work lives or whatever. And we simply can't know from the place of the intellect why we're stuck, because the stuckness has to do with something that is not intellectual. It has to do with a feeling inside of us that has not been processed. Now, when you start breathing, you can start to actually experience the feelings. You can let those feelings come up and emerge. And just like if you are, say, we all know what it feels like to have a good cry. And sometimes all you just need to do is have a cry. And then after you cry for a while, then it's like, okay, the feeling moved through. That was what was needed. I just needed to cry for a while. And in the same way, when you're doing breath work, you can let yourself experience whatever that stuckness was inside of you. And then the more you're moving the energy with it, the more it just can release, and then it's kind of gone. And then you don't have to create some sort of story. You don't have to identify with it. All of the mental churning that we do, it's really exhausting. And more often than not, all of that mental churning is actually just brings up inaccurate perceptions of ourselves. It creates a story, it creates a narrative based in our ego's relationship to ourselves, and it's not accurate. And so, yeah, when you tap into that unexpected, those feelings that are unexpected, that's great. Also cool to notice a heightened awareness of sensation now. Yeah, it really is cool to notice that heightened awareness of sensation. This really brings you into a more sensual relationship with yourself. That is pretty extraordinary. You know, when you start to sense more cellularly, you can actually feel more. You have more sensations inside of you. It really starts to activate a deeper intelligence, present moment intelligence. Let's see. Anyone else on Facebook with questions? I'll hang out here a few more minutes if anyone else has questions that they want to add. I'm not sure why this is not showing all my comments. As Sean says, emotional paralysis is tougher than our physical paralysis. That is, you're damn right. Physical paralysis for me is more of an inconvenience. It's just really, you know, emotional paralysis is where the real paralysis is always. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions that are coming in. So if that's it, I'm going to wrap it up. One new message. Okay, I think that's it. All right, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this, got something out of it. If you'd like to share it, please feel free to. And if anyone wants to find out more about my 6-month coaching program where we use breathwork and meditation as a tool, it's just one tool amongst many for developing greater presence and wisdom in our leadership, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at sam@zenwarriortraining.com. And if that's all for now, I'm going to send all of you a ton of love. This is a very challenging time for everyone. You're welcome, Stephanie. Sending you all a ton of love and wishes for inner peace in the midst of this chaos that we're presently experiencing. Okay, take care.